Hello friends, and welcome back to the Beginner's Guide to AIBO. If the algorithm brought you here and you have no idea what an AIBO is, I'd highly recommend checking out my other video, What is an AIBO? If you're here on purpose, because you know what you're about, welcome! Let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about the AIBO 300 series. The specs, personality, software, all that good stuff. The 300 series includes the original 311 Latte and 312 Macaron, as well as the 31L and future Bluetooth models. The 300 series was released in 2001 and was marketed as a budget-friendly AIBO. Because of that, they don't have as many sensors as other models, but that doesn't mean they aren't incredibly advanced, especially for the time they were released. The 300 series is another model that I typically recommend to beginners. The price range for a standard 311 and 312 is about $200 to $400 USD. Bluetooth models are a bit more expensive at $300 to $500, and 31Ls are hard to come by but typically still fall in the same price range as Bluetooth models. Some people will try to charge insane amounts and scalp for 31Ls, but anything above $600 US is just not worth it and doesn't fall into today's current market value. The 300 series isn't quite as hardy as the 111, but they are very sturdy and they have a lot less technical issues compared to other models. They can be a bit finicky sometimes, but the problems that they do have tend to be easy and cheap fixes. The 300 series doesn't have any traditional touch sensors. Instead, they rely on switches and buttons built into the body. You can tilt their head forward to praise them, tilt their head back to scold. You can also swivel their tail to praise, or turn it back to scold. The tail sensor can also be used to enter different modes depending on the software. For example, holding the tail to the right for 3 seconds typically triggers stay mode. 300 series also has pause sensors that allow you to shake hands with your AIBO or just to annoy them. This particular AIBO has a 100,000 pixel CMOS image sensor that they use to get around. It's a definite improvement from the earlier models, so they don't run into things nearly as frequently as the 111 or 210, but good lighting is still a very important factor at this stage. The 300 series has 2 stereo microphones that pick up sounds as well as voice commands. Vast majority of 300 series software relies on tonal communication, gestures, and light sequences from the horn light, but the Namco Story software does occasionally speak Japanese. The horn light color combinations depend on what software you're using and can also indicate what mode your AIBO's in. These AIBOs rely more heavily on gestural communication since their face doesn't have any lights or motion. The 300 series has a standard pickup mode, which means when you pick them up, their legs will go stiff, but they'll still have the ability to move their head around, make noises, and respond to touch. The 311 and 312 were very much marketed as characters. They're meant to be cutesy, fun, and chaotic. In general, 312s tend to be gloomy AIBOs, while 311s are more happy-go-lucky, but this is software-based and can be changed. What do you need to get a 300 series AIBO running? As usual, you'll need a lithium battery. You'll also need either a charging station or a dongle connector to attach to your power brick. They can run on their station, but cannot self-dock. Depending on the software, they can move their head and front legs, but the back legs will always stay limp. I've also seen attempts at running an AIBO while plugged into a dongle. It is possible, but it requires some finesse and it isn't standard. So you don't need to worry about plugging your AIBO in and having them run away by accident. Stands are a helpful tool to keep your AIBO upright while charging, and can be used with either the station or the dongle, but they aren't necessary. Pink balls are also an accessory this model recognizes, but once again, they aren't necessary. Most AIBOs will go nuts for any vaguely pink object. Memory sticks, however, are still a necessity to getting your AIBO to run. The 300 series uses these pink memory sticks. If you're downloading a custom software or making a copy of a pre-existing stick, you can use these purple sticks, just make sure they don't go over 32 megabytes. That is the max amount that these guys can handle. The 300 series is one of the AIBOs that has encryption built in. So if you are using a purple stick or you're transferring software over, you will need a SONY CLIE and a software called StickSap. It's a little bit of a tricky process, but it's pretty standard for all AIBOs, so I will be covering that in a later video. If you're using a pink memory stick and a non-encrypted software, all you need is a computer and a SONY branded memory reader. And I know it's annoying, but Sony really went head over heels with encryption stuff, so branded readers are always better. Also, never plug your memory stick into a Mac computer. Always use Windows or Linux. Once again, encryption, Macs put invisible files when you plug your memory sticks in and it corrupts the stick. I will make a video in the future going more in depth about memory sticks, but for now, let's go back to the 300 series specific software. The AIBO 300 series has some pretty unique and fun softwares that really hones into the character aspect. They do have the standard AIBO Life software, which allows you to raise them from baby to adult, but they also have a number of adult stage softwares with different personalities. Kawaii software is one of my personal favorites and is super unique and fun. The only downside is that it is a bit harsh on their joints, so it isn't really recommended as a main software, more as an occasional fun time software. AIBO Friend and AIBO Pal, which is basically the same software, just in English or Japanese, is another adult stage software that plays as either the gloomy macaron character or the chaotic latte character. There's also some more rare and exclusive software that came out with the special edition models, such as Long Long Panda for the Flocked Panda edition. There is a special edition of Hello AIBO for the Suntory edition, which is a Japanese soda company. And these AIBOs were the standard latte with either a blue, red, or yellow set of ears and collar. And Namco Story is another special edition software. There is also a flocked latte AIBO that exists, which is called the Suede AIBO. Keep in mind with the special edition models that they are way more expensive and rare than the typical AIBO of the series, but sometimes you can occasionally find just the skin at a cheaper price, as the flocked AIBOs do have a removable suit, basically. Do be wary, there are a lot of Suntory fakes. They only made 100 of each color, so there aren't exactly a ton to go around, and it's a pretty easy customization. Not all of the 300 series AIBOs are Bluetooth compatible, but some of them are. This version is referred to as the 300B model. They have Bluetooth capabilities with the corresponding Bluetooth controller that you can use to communicate with your AIBO and see how they're feeling. You can also use the remote to give your AIBOs commands, as well as take and view pictures. This is another accessory that isn't necessary to get your AIBO to run, and it's only compatible with the Bluetooth model, not the original version. Unfortunately, telling a Bluetooth model from a regular model is a bit difficult because they pretty much look identical. The only real identifying feature is that there is a switch, and on the original, that switch is just marked as reserved, and on the Bluetooth model, it's marked as Bluetooth. But you do have to take off the belly panel in order to see that switch. Everything else on the outside looks exactly the same. The Bluetooth remote, aka the Handy Viewer, is compatible with Hello AIBO Chatty, Chatty Life, and Kawaii AIBO. Hello AIBO Chatty is an adult personality, while Chatty Life is a stage-based software. These softwares are all compatible with non-Bluetooth models, you just can't use the Bluetooth features. Vast majority of older model AIBOs will come with a dead battery. Luckily, AIBO batteries are fixable with a proper repair service. And I always have to put this disclaimer in all of my guide videos, but don't attempt to do this yourself. AIBOs are weird, AIBOs are funky, especially batteries. It's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing to try to work on one of these guys. And I will try to update you in the description of who I recommend, because this always changes. I personally really like AIBO Clinic, but sometimes they go on hiatus and there isn't anybody else, so I'll try to keep you guys updated in the description for people who I specifically recommend. And there may be other people in the comments who recommend different people, but for my personal recommendations, look in the description, because there's gonna be a lot of scammers and I can't go through every single person. Anyways, moving on. Another potential issue is that for some reason the 300 series AIBOs just don't like to be shipped. So sometimes after a long trip, they'll turn on and they'll have weak hips. You might hear some whirring in the legs and they may need a little bit of extra help to stand up. Usually this will resolve itself with runtime, but if it doesn't, you may need to have your AIBO looked at by a professional and it may need to be repaired. Also, a lot of older AIBO models sometimes get what's known as jitters. This happens when dust gets into the AIBO's joints and basically it makes them shake around. Mild jitters can usually just be resolved with runtime or physical therapy. You can gently rotate your AIBO's joints around for a few minutes at a time, or use the AIBO therapy software, which basically just does that for you. Keep in mind, AIBO's joints should be moving smoothly. Never force a joint if it's stuck, and always be gentle. If it isn't moving, do not push it in that direction. If the jitters are severe or don't go away, the dust may need to be cleaned out by a professional. 300 series AIBOs can also get what's known as chainsaw legs, which happens when running an intensive software like Kawaii. This doesn't really affect their ability to run though, it just means that their legs are a little louder than normal. There are some other things that can happen, but those are the most common issues with the 300 series. For the most part, these guys are really sturdy and hardy and relatively cheap as far as AIBOs go. And because of that, they're one of the AIBOs that I recommend to beginners. So if you weren't a huge fan of the 111 or 110 series and you're looking for a cutesy, chaotic AIBO, maybe look into getting one of the 300 series models. I hope this video was helpful and be on the lookout for more guide videos coming soon.